Carnell Alexander had a warrant out for his arrest for being a deadbeat dad. Now, the interesting thing here is that he wasn't paying child support for a child that was not his biologically. Now, this is a really interesting and disturbing case. Apparently, his ex-girlfriend got pregnant with someone else's baby, and she was facing financial hardship. So as a result, she contacted Carnell Alexander and told him, hey, I'm not able to get any governmental assistance unless I have a father's name on the birth certificate. So he agreed to have his name placed on the birth certificate, even though it wasn't his child. Now, the child was born in the 1980s. Then, fast forward to 1991, when he finds out there's a warrant out for his arrest because he hasn't been paying child support. It turns out that the state, this is in the state of Michigan, would not give governmental assistance unless he also paid child support, right? And so he wasn't paying child support because it wasn't his kid. He didn't even know that he was supposed to pay child support. Well, even though he can prove that this is not his biological child, and even though he has already done that through DNA evidence, they are still basically forcing him to pay the child support, and he has been put in prison as a result of being a deadbeat dad. This is absolutely ridiculous.
It was so clear that even the people doing the testing said,
"You are not."
Sorry. Okay, serious story, sorry.
All right, look, there's one other element to this that I think is mind-blowing. Michigan Department of Corrections says that it is impossible that he's the father since he was incarcerated at the time. And he has this to say, I'm almost homeless. I'm almost in jail. I'm out of work. My money is threatened to be taken. I'm scared.
Okay, so two things about this. Number one, it's actually not outrageous for the state to say, look, if you're on the birth certificate and you're the dad, well, we assume you are the dad and you should be responsible for the kid. Because we don't want those women left to fend for themselves, because it's not fair. It's both of their kids. It's not to say that the dad should pay all the bills. That's crazy too. Mm-hmm. They're both the parents. They should both chip in. So the idea behind the law is not a bad one. I get it.
I think it's a bad one.
That's interesting. Well, why do you say? I mean, look. So let's say that there's a dad and he won't pay. So you think, well, sad day for you. That's to take care of it on your own.
It's a difficult situation, but if you have a tumultuous relationship with someone, and let's say the father's abusive or the father was terrible, right, and you don't want to deal with him, and you need welfare or governmental assistance to raise your child, why should the government force you to work with someone that might have been abusive towards you?
Well, look, the government forces us to a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. And he shouldn't be rewarded for being abusive. Okay, well, if you're abusive, then you don't get to pay, right? So I don't like that at all. So I disagree with you a little bit.
And also another thing, and look, I mean, of course there are morality questions here and people are going to judge, but let's say you are a woman who doesn't know who the father is, right? So what happens then?
Yeah, now that's a great point.
Right.
And then at that point, you got to be able to say, hey, I don't know, right? But then that creates a loophole where a lot of people are going to say, I don't know, right? Even if they do know.
Yeah.
So those are challenging issues. But the second part of this should be fairly easy when it comes to this guy.
Right.
He's not the dad. We all know he's not the dad. He was in jail. Everybody says he's not the dad. Get off his ass and be a little careful. Look, when the state comes knocking on your door, it's not a light thing and it shouldn't be treated lightly. Arresting a guy, having him go through court proceedings. Like, okay, I think a lot of people who write the law have the perspective of someone with means. They think, well, what's the big deal? I'll just get a lawyer and I'll have this figured out in a jiffy, right? But the guy who you're doing this to oftentimes doesn't have a lawyer, right? And then sometimes he gets taken out of his place of work and dragged into court, right? Or handcuffed or all these things. And those are serious, serious things. You shouldn't do that lightly. Just do a little investigation before you go through all of that to figure out, hey, are you the dad? Oh, no, the mom says you're not the dad. Well, hey, mom, then you got to fix that and put it on her, right? Because she put the wrong name down. But either way, for this specific guy to have to pay anything or to be even under the threat of paying anything is beyond outrageous.
So the judge has actually put this case on hold so his attorney can actually have a chance to argue that he shouldn't have to pay for child support. So I think in the end, justice will be served because the judge acknowledges that, hey, this is not his biological child and there's something wrong here. So we'll see how this goes. And, he was initially arrested because there was an arrest warrant for him, but he hasn't been placed in prison yet. He could face prison time if the system shows that it is unjust and they don't do what they're supposed to do.
Listen to Maury, man. Listen to Maury.
You are not.
How's that dance go? Not like that.